All right, this one, the slope is -1. How did it go?
Nailed it.
It went okay. However order you want to go, you just have to subtract your y's. So I'm going to do 1 minus -6. And then you got to go the same order, -5 minus 2. Doesn't matter what order you go in. 7 over -7. If you go this way, -6 minus 1, and 2 minus a -5, you still get the same answer. Doesn't matter. Change in y over change in x. Doesn't matter which way you go. Okay? All right, the answer to this one, hopefully it went okay, is -8 is less than f is less than -4. How did that go? Come on, really? I'm throwing them out here because you need some extra practice. Some of you need extra practice. It's a less than, so I got to set it up as an and, correct? So I'm going to do f plus 6 is greater than -2. F plus 6 is less than 2. That's an and right there. And then you subtract 6 from both sides. Yeah? Okay, let's review the vocab real quick. A scatter plot. We're going to do scatter plots pretty much on the calculator today. Used to determine a relationship from a set of data points. Positive, you remember positive correlation? If it tends to go up as x increases, y increases. If y tends to decrease as x increases, it's a negative. Correlation, we're going to look at R. I'll show you what that is. And a best fitting line is the line that lies as close as possible to all the data points. It's an equal number of points above and below. Do you guys remember this stuff at all? Yeah. Sort of? Okay. Let's look. Describe the correlation shown by each scatter plot. As x increases, what's y doing? Just barely. Well.
That's next language you got there.
Thing. So it's a negative correlation. Okay? How about this one? As x increases, what's y doing? Yep, it's increasing barely, so it's a positive correlation. So far, so good. Yes? I think you can do that. Okay, turn the page. All right. This part, it says, tell whether the correlation coefficient for the data is closest to -1, -0.5, 0.5, or 1. Well, this is where the correlation coefficient is R. We're representing it with R. And basically all these numbers mean is if it's a strong negative, I'll show you, just hang in there. If it's a strong negative, we're going to say R is -1. If it goes down very steeply, okay, it's very obvious. Then the middle kind of is when there's no correlation. You say the R is 0. Okay? And when there's a strong positive correlation, it's +1. It's really just an estimate. It's kind of what you think, really just an estimate. So this is a pretty obvious downhill, correct? So we would say R is -1. It's a strong, it's pretty obvious that it's down. Strong negative correlation.
But you said it went down by -1, so shouldn't it be...
No, it's not going down by -1. That has nothing to do with the how it's going down. It's just whether it's a very obvious negative correlation. Like this is very negative. Strong negative correlation, we would say R is -1. Okay? 0 would be no correlation when the dots are all over the place and you can't tell whether it's going down or up.
What would 0.5 be?
Well, like if you had a negative, let's say -0.5, I think it would be more kind of like that. It's not a real strong downhill, somewhat of a downhill. So it's really just an estimate. Okay, the calculator gives us exact correlations, which we'll look at, but this is really just an estimate. Okay, so the table gives the systolic blood pressure Y of patients X years old. Find the best fitting line for the data. We are not going to do this by hand. We're simply going to use the calculator, okay? So what I want you to do, just to let you know, using the calculator, there are directions on page 116. If you get at home and you're trying to do your homework and you just simply can't remember how to do it, it shows you how to use the graphing calculator on page 116. I'm going to go through it with you also. Have you done this before on the graphing calculator? I know my students did. Okay, well, here we go. Let me put this in here, sort of see if we can see it. So you have a table, and you have X and Y, correct? Okay, what you got to do is turn the calculator on, get to this screen, Y equals. Make sure that none of these are highlighted. Oh, they could be, but we're going to make sure to turn them off. Do you know how to turn them off? Just arrow up to them, push enter, and arrow down, then they should be off. So your first screen should look just like that, yes? Okay, when we have a table of data to enter, it's statistics. We're entering statistics, so where do you go? Stat. Push the stat button. Stat, right here. Okay? I got to turn this off. It's going to take. So go ahead and enter all the X values. Okay? Then you're going to arrow over and you're going to enter the corresponding Y values, the blood pressure values. Now what will really screw you up is if you don't. Now, we're going to plot our statistics. We need to plot our statistics. So where do you think you would go on the calculator if you got to plot them?
No, stat.
Look at what it says right here, stat plot. So I plot my statistics. So I second Y equals. And you could do a whole bunch of graphs at once. We just want to do one, so we got to turn this on. Stat plot right here. Please stay with me, okay? Stat plot, you see it? So you push second Y equals. Yeah? Okay. Now I want to turn it on, so I got to push enter. I'm going to turn plot 1 on. It's flashing on, so I push enter. I want it on. And then you can choose, look at all the different types of graphs you can do on here. Well, we want to do a scatter plot, so we're going to leave it on that type. And then we're going to arrow down. And yes, these are my lists. This is why I said you need to know the list number. Mine are L1 and L2. Perfect. If they aren't, you can change them. You all on L1 and L2? Is that where you put your data? Okay. And then you can choose how you want your little dots to look on your screen. Doesn't matter.
I don't care.
Okay? All right. Now we're going to graph it, but don't push graph. Because if you do, then you got to adjust your window and you got to figure out where exactly to find it. The calculator will adjust your window for you perfectly if you push zoom right here and then, no, it's not doing it. Zoom, wait a minute.
Don't press it, guys.
I don't even know what happened. Zoom fit. So that's number 9.
You got to exit out of it?
Maybe. You could just second quit.
That's 0 for me.
Did it look like this? Zoom 9. That's zoom fit.
It's 0.
Okay. Shh. Take a look. You guys just look at mine. It's taking longer than it should. So right now, what they gave me, take a look. A represents what in the equation?
X equals the M.
Right. A is the slope. B is the what? So I got to write that down. I'm going to round it to like the hundredths place. My slope, or my A, I'm just going to put my M. My slope is 0.96. My y-intercept is 81.05. And I'm going to say my R, just in case I need to know that later, is 0.9. I'm rounding up. What does the R mean again? It's a strong what? Positive correlation. So now that I have my M and my B, I can write my line of best fit. There's an X there. 81.05. That's the equation of the line of best fit. Pardon me? On decimals. Yes, Torin.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me?
I want
Mine
to
and
see
Jason's numbers.
see what I did first.
They shouldn't have. I have to just check your data, make sure your data's right.
52.
Make sure you enter the right numbers in your data. Did everybody else have the same numbers? Okay. Now what we need to do, we're not quite done. Once we have this equation, we go to y equals, and we enter this equation into y equals. Enter that equation in y equals. Push graph, and then we have our line of best fit on the calculator.
How do you get that?
Holy, it goes through one.
X is right here next to alpha. X is right next to alpha.
Why did I get a little circle? You know,
Okay?
my line, how come my line's different from
It shouldn't be.
yours? Did I do something wrong?
I don't know.
We'll give you a line.
Did you put X in it for sure?
I got the little circle.
You sure it's exactly like mine? 0.96x plus 81.05. I don't know why it won't give you a line. Maybe somebody set the thing funny. We'll have to look at the settings. All right, now, ladies and gentlemen, this seems like a lot, but it doesn't take too long. Remember, the directions are on page 116. Let me give you the shortened form. You go to Stat. This is the first step, number 1. And you insert info into the lists. Then you go to Stat, Calculate, number 4, Enter, Enter. This is to get your M and these are your steps. These are to get your M and B or your A and B. You can turn your diagnostics on if you need to, if you want the R. We're still not quite done, believe it or not. They're asking us, predict the systolic pressure of a 75-year-old patient. Is this my X or my Y in this information? So what you could do is you could just stick it in here and do the math. You can even use trace on the calculator if you wanted to. Have you ever used trace on the calculator? It's pretty snazzy. If you use trace, you push this.